There is one very specific thing almost every female dog does almost every single day that male dogs rarely ever do. Most owners watch it happen for years without knowing what it actually means. And once you understand why she does it, you will never look at her the same way again. This is Canine Dog Talk, the channel dedicated to understanding what's really happening inside your dog's mind. And if that's something you care about, hit subscribe now, because we cover something exactly like this every single week. Here's what most owners never notice. Somewhere in your home right now, your female dog is running a quiet routine that has nothing to do with training and nothing to do with treats. She walks a slow lap through the house.
She pauses at every family member for a second or two, almost like she's taking attendance, and then she moves on and does it again a little while later. Most people explain this away. They say she's bored, or she's looking for food, or she just likes wandering around. But trainers and behaviorists who study this pattern closely describe it very differently. They call it a checking-in ritual, and it shows up far more often and far more consistently in female dogs than in male dogs. Before we go any further, think about your own dog for a second. Does she do a version of this? Does she check on you when you're in another room or quietly follow you without ever being called? If that sounds familiar, type yes in the comments right now, because what you're about to hear explains exactly why she does it, and it is not what most people assume. To understand where this comes from, you have to go back much further than your living room. You have to go back to the ancestors of every dog alive today, wolves. In a wild wolf pack, raising pups is never left to the mother alone. Researchers who have spent years watching wild packs, including long-term projects tracking wolves in and around Yellowstone, have documented something remarkable. Non-breeding pack members, usually older siblings from a previous litter, will guard the den, groom the pups, feed them, and respond instantly the moment a pup cries out in distress. In some of these families, the females filling that helper role spend just as much time at the den during the pup's first 10 weeks of life as the actual mother does. Scientists call this alloparenting, and in some documented cases, it goes even further than that, with non-mother producing milk just so they can help nurse pups that are not even their own. Field researchers studying free-roaming domestic dogs have found the same thing happening in packs today. Related females sharing milk with puppies they did not give birth to, a behavior scientists refer to as allonursing. Read that again. A female who has never had a single puppy, her body preparing to raise one anyway. That tells you something important. The instinct to nurture and protect the young is not something that switches on only after a female gives birth. It's built into the architecture of the female brain from the very beginning, sitting there fully wired whether she ever becomes a mother or not. Every domestic dog inherited this same wiring from her wolf ancestors. Veterinarians see proof of it constantly in a condition most owners have never heard of called false pregnancy. It's far more common than people realize. Veterinary reproduction specialists estimate that the vast majority of intact female dogs, some studies put the figure close to 87%, will go through it at least twice over the course of their lives. And in certain breeds, the clinical signs show up in more than half of all intact females. The trigger is a hormone called prolactin, the same hormone responsible for milk production in a nursing mother. About 6 to 9 weeks after her cycle ends, whether she was ever actually pregnant or not, prolactin rises and progesterone falls, and her body responds as if puppies are on the way. Nesting, guarding toys like their puppies, even producing milk. A female dog who has never been bred, sometimes even one who has been spayed, can go through weeks of behaving exactly like a brand new mother. If her body can do that without a single puppy ever existing, imagine what that same wiring is doing every day quietly in the background while she lives in your home. And here's the part that changes everything. In a wolf pack, the thing that switches this instinct on is a pup. In your home, there is no pup, so that instinct gets redirected onto the closest thing available. And in almost every case, that closest thing is you. There's a hormone at the center of all of this called oxytocin, and it plays a massive role in how mammals bond with their young. In 2015, a team of researchers published a study in the journal Science that measured exactly what happens when a dog and her owner lock eyes. They brought dog-owner pairs into a room, let them interact naturally for 30 minutes, and tracked oxytocin levels before and after. The dogs who held eye contact with their owners the longest showed the sharpest rise in oxytocin, and so did the owners looking back at them. Researchers now call this a gaze loop, and it is quietly running every single time your dog locks eyes with you across the room. Here's the detail that made the study famous. The same team ran the identical experiment with wolves who had been raised by humans from birth, hand-fed, and living a household exactly like a pet dog. The wolves gazed at their owners plenty. Their oxytocin barely moved. Only the dogs showed the loop, which tells you this isn't just about being raised around people. It's something that changed specifically in dogs somewhere over thousands of years of domestication, and it's largely absent even in an animal given the exact same upbringing. Your female dog is not just fond of you. On a hormonal level, a piece of her brain is treating you the way it was built to treat something she is meant to raise and protect for life. Once you know this, you start noticing it everywhere. Watch what she does the next time you're sick or upset or crying. Researchers at Goldsmiths University of London put this to the test directly. They brought in 18 dogs and had either the dog's owner or a complete stranger pretend to cry, hum oddly, or just have a normal conversation for 20 seconds at a time. Across nearly every trial, the dogs paid far more attention to the person who was crying than to the person humming or talking. They didn't just glance over. They crossed the room, nuzzled the person, pressed against them and stayed close, and researchers watching the footage described the body language as consistent with comfort offering, rather than simple curiosity. What stood out most is that the dogs reacted almost the same way whether it was their own owner crying or a total stranger they had just met, which suggests this isn't only about a bond built through feeding and walks. Something about human distress itself seems to flip a switch. Distress in something small and vulnerable is one of the strongest triggers for a mothering response in any female mammal on Earth. And your dog's brain does not fully separate a crying puppy from a crying person she loves. Then there's the licking. If your female dog licks your hands, your face, or gently nibbles at your hair, she is not doing something vaguely affectionate. She is performing an action that in a litter exists for exactly one purpose: cleaning and caring for a puppy who cannot clean itself. It's the same grooming behavior wolf helpers perform on pups back at the den. When she licks you, some part of her brain is running the same program it would run on a newborn. This instinct doesn't stop at you either. It shows up in objects too. Has your female dog ever dragged a blanket into a corner and arranged it with her paws, or gathered soft toys into a pile and guarded them like something precious? That's nesting behavior, driven by the same hormones involved in pregnancy and motherhood. Veterinarians who study false pregnancy report that collecting and mothering objects, along with nesting itself, are the two behaviors owners describe most often. It's why the behavior can appear even in dogs who have never been bred, because the instinct doesn't need an actual litter to express itself. It just needs somewhere to go. Then there's the vigilance. Researchers comparing male and female dogs have consistently found real differences in how each sex relates to people. Females tend to score higher on measures of sociability. They initiate more physical contact with unfamiliar people, and several studies show they lean more heavily on reading human faces and body language than male dogs do. Males, meanwhile, tend to show the more obvious kind of territorial behavior: marking, patrolling, reacting loudly to anything unfamiliar. Female vigilance looks completely different. It's quieter. It's about watching, tracking who's around, reading a room before anything actually happens. Many owners notice their female dog gravitating toward doors and windows, reacting to unfamiliar sounds or strangers approaching the house before anyone else in the family even notices. In a wolf pack, standing between a vulnerable pack member and potential threat is one of the oldest defensive behaviors in the species. Your dog is still running that exact program. She has simply aimed it at the people she has decided are hers. And finally, pay attention to where she chooses to sleep. Many owners notice their female dog gravitating toward the smallest, youngest, or most fragile member of the household, a child, an elderly relative, someone recovering from an illness. She curls around them, often positioning her own body between that person and the edge of the bed or the door. That is not random comfort seeking. That is a guarding position chosen deliberately night after night. And that word chosen is really the heart of everything we've talked about today. Nobody ever told your dog that a human being can be raised, protected, and loved the same way a puppy would be. She decided that entirely on her own, using an instinct that existed in her species for tens of thousands of years before dogs and humans ever shared a home. Every time she checks on you, every time she grooms you, every time she curls her body around the smallest, most vulnerable person in your house, she is not performing a trick, and she is not doing it for a reward. None of this makes her simply affectionate or clingy. It means her brain is running some of the same ancient wiring that helped raise entire litters of wolf pups for thousands of generations. And she has aimed every bit of that wiring at you. She is doing the one thing her biology prepared her for since before she was even born, caring for the family she chose for as long as she lives without ever once being asked to. That is usually the moment it hits people. Not the checking in, not the grooming, not the nesting. It's realizing that none of it was ever conditional. She didn't do any of this because you trained her to or because she wanted something back. She did it because somewhere in the oldest part of her mind, she already decided you were hers to look after permanently, and there was nothing you had to do to earn that except exist in her life. So, if you recognized even one of these behaviors while watching this, go back and tell me in the comments which one hit hardest. The checking in, the grooming, the nesting, or the way she sleeps beside the people she loves most. I read every single comment, and I genuinely want to know how many of you had no idea this was happening in your own home. And if this changed the way you see your dog, there's another video waiting for you that goes even deeper into the specific signs a dog only shows to the one person she trusts the most. And almost every owner misses at least half of them. Make sure you're subscribed before that one goes up, because you are not going to want to miss it.